right, we're here at my indoor tiny worm bin, and it has been 17 days since we were in here last. So I'll be really surprised if there's any food left, and we are probably going to see some drying out on the bedding. And sure enough, right where the plastic was, it seems to be moist and then dry around the edges. Now today, we're going to go over all kinds of information about amendments, where I use them, how I use them, why I use them, and how I kind of prep things to be amendments in my bins. And check it out, we've already got some worms right there. So they don't seem to be worried about me not feeding them for 17 days. So that is fantastic. And these are all red wigglers. You can see them right there between my thumbs. And let's kind of dig down and see if there's any hope of any of the food that we put in here. This looks like a tomato skin, which may last for a while. But down here, there is not a whole lot other than these skins. Now, what we put in here last time was a small lettuce stalk, some tomato slices, some carrot, strawberry, and pepper tops. We had a couple of cucumber ends, some watermelon, and an apple core. And we also have a loofah sponge in here, so we'll see if they're starting to break that down or if they're still just kind of climbing in between it. And I'm just going to kind of pull from the edges in and the corners, anywhere around where the bin is touching. I think it gets a lot of airflow, so it's kind of dry. And one of the things we're going to do is add additional wet bedding. And sure enough, right here is a little piece of the loofah. And it looks like they're really breaking it down. Now, this loofah sponge was in our kitchen for about a year. Then we just rinsed it out real well and we fed it to the worms. The other thing I noticed when I first pulled off the paper there was that we had a couple of fruit flies in here. And I don't know if that's from maybe the food didn't get completely frozen or something, but we'll have to see about that. Now, the new bedding I'm putting in, look at this worm real quick. It's just a beautiful, beautiful worm. Oh, I got two of them. But right here, you can see it's an adult because the clitellum is thick and not in line with the body. That's another way to tell it's a red wiggler, and its tail right there is orange at the end. So just a beautiful worm right there. So yeah, so the bedding that we're putting in has had mosquito dunk solution mixed in the water that I kind of dampened it with. So any of those fruit flies will probably not make it. The fruit flies themselves might, but they'll get out of there. But any larvae that they lay will not. So again, just really, I'm sorry. I love to look at the worms as I inspect here. And I think this right here, they're either in a carrot or possibly a tangerine right there. Just magnificent worms. So I don't think fruit flies will be a problem in here. And one of the things is this thing has a screen on all the holes. So if they were in there, I don't think they could get out. And we have uncovered just a bunch of moisture right here. And sure enough, tons of worms right in that moist area of the bin. That's another reason why I like to get in here and kind of mix things up so I can get the moisture levels even throughout every time I come in here. Now this bin is my only bin that does not drain. So it's the one that I have to kind of manage the moisture with. And by manage, I mean I have to kind of let it get a little bit drier at the beginning than I want it at the end, because as you get more and more castings, as your bedding and food becomes castings, it absorbs a lot of water. So it's very hard towards the end to get rid of the moisture as you're trying to dry out the castings a little bit so that they flow when you harvest them. So this is the 5th iteration of this bin. And what I've realized is I need to allow it to be just a little bit dry, you know, what you saw around the corners, so that when it is time to harvest or it gets towards the end, I'm not full of a sopping wet, muddy bin. So let me just continue to mix them around and then we'll set up for our feeding. Okay, so in previous videos, I had mentioned that I was going to maybe go trench feeding and then go flat on top with bedding on it feedings, but it is still pretty high here, so I don't want to add a layer of food and then bedding on top of it because I don't want it to get up to these holes here. So we're just going to go ahead and do another trench feeding, and I am really happy with how the worms look and the moisture levels. It's really damp towards the bottom, so that is good. And when I say really damp, I don't mean like sopping wet. I meant really damp, like to the moisture level that I like it. So as always, I like to add a little bit more dampened shredded cardboard to my bins, and you can kind of tell the difference between, you know, what they've kind of worked over and the new stuff that I put in there. And again, this has some mosquito dunks solution mixed in with it. We'll put in just a little bit more. I always like to add carbon and nitrogen, and you can really never have too much carbon in a worm bin. And then here's what we had in mind to feed. Now, I thought it out because we were going to do the video yesterday, but we didn't, so I refroze it, and then I thought it out again a little bit. So this is some pear slices, it looks like. Let me see if I can break this apart. Sure enough, I can. It looks like I've got some banana peels. Got some lettuce. Lettuce is really fast food. Some tomatoes, more cucumber tops. And we'll just put this stock in. Now this is really bulky in volume, but this actually within probably 6 days will be completely gone. See if I can break it up just a little bit more, and then we'll kind of jam this down in here like that. And the worms are going to enjoy all of this. I expect that we'll see maybe some of the banana peel next time we're in here. Other than that, this stuff will go pretty quick. The other thing I want to do is give them some watermelon. This will add to the moisture content as well. And there they go right there. So this looks like a pretty big feeding for 500 worms. Now the bin is 2 months old and I've only fed it 5 times. So this amount of food for 500 worms for the length of time it's been taking me to get into the bins, at least 2 weeks every time, this is going to be perfect for them. So real quick, let's talk a little bit about amendments. Here's some cocoa flour, some flax seeds, some almond flour, and some coconut sugar. This is just some of the stuff that I found in my pantry that is expired and can be used to make worm chow. Now, all of this stuff I bought for individual recipes and I just didn't make enough of it. This is May 2nd, 2018, and here we are in 2023. So look in your pantry, see if you have some of this stuff. I always look for sodium and see if, it's high in sodium or even has any kind of sodium in it, because that's just salt. And the worms are not going to react well to stuff with high salt content. Another staple for my worm chow is oats, and these are very easy. I mean, these are steel cut, so I could probably put some in straight like that. Oh, they look whole there. But I just add those to my Magic Bullet blender, all those ingredients, and I kind of blend them up. Now when I do it, I don't fill the whole thing up with all those ingredients. I'll go about halfway and I'll blend it, and then I'll put it into another container and keep going halfway. And this is the typical blade that you'll see in a Magic Bullet blender, and that does well with smoothies and worm chow and actually grit when you're putting eggshells in. But some of them come with this coffee bean grinder, and I like to use that sometimes when I'm doing my eggshell grit, and every morning, as you can see, it's got some dust from the coffee that we make. So let's go ahead and go in with that worm chow, and I don't put a lot. This isn't like a major feeding for them. This is just a little bit of stuff here, because this stuff can tend to mat down, and I've heard other folks talk about it not being something that you want to have buried down into the bedding in any great quantities, so I just kind of lightly sprinkle it on top. The next ingredient I add as far as amendments is coffee, and we've got these individual coffee grounds for our Keurig, and I will just take the grounds that are right in here, and I fill up a container, and coffee just for my wife and I, and it seems like that we fill up this container faster than I can put this in all 4 of my worm bins. So as this is kind of sitting out, I don't know if you can tell, but this is a coffee bean right here, but it is actually pretty moldy, and all the stuff that is separated is really moldy. And that's just another thing that helps to break down the coffee that we put in here for the worms, and both them and the microbes will eat it, and they're going to cycle those nutrients right back into my garden. And that is one of the things that I love about amendments is I am taking stuff that would normally get thrown away, I'm taking the nutrients from it, feeding the worms, they're making worm castings for me, and all of it is going right back into my garden. So I'm taking nutrients from other places and putting it into my garden. And then kind of the last amendment that I use is I use eggshells for grit. So I grind them up in that Magic Bullet blender. They kind of look like this when I shove them into this jar right here. And what I like to do is dedicate one of the cups from the Magic Bullet blender as my eggshell cup, because as you can see, it puts a little bit of a haze as it is spinning around. Those eggshells are super sharp and they put micro scratches on here. So if you're into aesthetics, maybe just save one and not keep using all the different ones. Otherwise, you might get some haze from them. And so again, either one of these blades will do. I use both of them, but a lot of people use this one right here. It's the coffee grinder one. So in we go with the eggshell grit, and they use it in their gizzards to help break up their food smaller. And I really like putting it in because you can't really overdo it too much unless you put like a huge pile that they can't even get through. But I never see it in concentrated quantities. So if anything, it's going right into my garden and adding all the great minerals and nutrients right into there. So all the stuff that I've been showing you, I've got affiliate links in the description and the pinned comment. At no extra cost to you, I get a little bit of a commission that I like to pour back into the channel to buy other worm bins and show you some of the equipment that I have. So this bin is doing really well. I was a little worried about it, leaving it for 17 days, but you can see worms are really good pets to have. You don't need to worry too much about them. As long as you give them adequate food for the time you're going to be gone and the moisture level is okay, and with that plastic on it, it concentrated it down there, they're going to be okay because they will eat the bedding that you have here. They won't run out of food. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some more moisturized bedding right on top of it. Kind of a combo of the two methods that I use, trench and then kind of a top feeding with the stuff on top. Do that, and then I'm also going to take from the sides, kind of fold it over as well, because I think we got some coffee grounds. Again, I'm just trying to keep the food down and bury it because I don't want any kind of critters or flies even thinking about coming in here. And with a lid, I don't have to worry about that too much. But if maybe some of that food didn't get frozen and it was sitting out and a fruit fly or a gnat got on it, that's where I can run into trouble. So I think it's just a great little feeding there. And the worm bin is doing well. So I hope you're doing well. I hope your worm bins are doing fantastic. So happy vermicomposting, everybody. Take care now. Right before you take care now, how about we put the paper back on real quick? Thank God the executive producer is there to remind me. And most importantly for me, because this is an inside worm bin and the air conditioner is just raging now that it's hot out, we put that plastic in to get the moisture to stay down there. So if you stayed this long, I appreciate it. Take care now.